Oh my.
I love it. We're gonna go live stream now, just to let you guys know. And so we're gonna have a broad audience of both magicians and lay people.
Who's the
So,
magicians?
well, I'm sure there's some somewhere. There
You're
we
not supposed to
go.
know. Secret.
That's
Ah,
right.
Your double life.
That's right. And for those of us who have been here a while, I want to welcome you, Facebook viewers, to the live stream. We're going to officially start the show in a few minutes. We've got wonderful guest Ariel Frailich, and we're going to get to know Ariel quite a bit more. A lot of magicians already do. So I was going to say to everybody, carry on, but I'm afraid if I say carry on, what will ensue? So
It could be a film.
that's right. That's right. You see, I should never announce, Tommy, that we're going live. I shouldn't announce that because it might inhibit some folks.
Sure.
However,
Yeah.
see, Cheryl, I told you I was gonna. I bought a razor. I'm all clean shaven for you.
I saw that Wednesday and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so cool. You
we
look
didn't
good.
rec sorry,
I
we didn't
try to look
recognize
young.
you.
You know, I'm gonna be turning 22,
That's
62.
Awesome.
good.
Surely you
Yay.
just
Too.
washed it off with a sponge.
Hi. Hi, Ian. Are
It's
you on
on,
location? Are you at
Jesus.
Doomsday
it's
or?
on the screen.
No, I left Tuesday early because I had to be with my cats because I left them on their own last night. So I attended Tuesday last night and most of today, and I'm just on my final bus home now. So I will
Where's
be
the
seeing them in
cats?
about 10 minutes. But
Very
they're all
good.
good. They've been drinking. I've been getting messages from my phone from them, so it's all good.
Well, thank you for joining us regardless. Yay, no one else waiting in the waiting room. They will no doubt come in during the show.
Ian, were you there for the X Factor?
No, that's the bit that I missed out,
Oh,
unfortunately. So of
okay.
course Kevin's performing in that. So he sent his
Uh,
apologies for this evening, but he's seen the Hex Factor competition and he's using my printer. So let's hope it works.
oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
Very exciting. Very exciting. Well, it's almost time. And oh my goodness, I think Cheryl has been swept up in the twister.
Mm.
As long as,
Oh,
oh,
I'm
good.
back.
I was gonna say, as long as no cows or pigs fly by or chickens, we're good.
Yeah, that would be from somebody else's farm. I don't have the cows or the pigs.
Yeah.
Plenty of chickens. You can always get more.
We're not in Kansas anymore.
I just trained them all. I don't want any more. Like, they know to
So
go in.
we're going to start in about a minute. So I'm going to ask everybody except Cheryl and Ariel, everyone, please mute yourselves, which sounds like something that a cruel person or perhaps Archie Bunker or somebody would say. Mute yourselves. And
Typo, typo.
Exactly.
yeah, there we go. All righty. All righty. Cheryl, I'm
Yes.
really excited about this show. Do you know why?
Why?
I'm glad you asked. Look who our guest is going to be this show. It's Ariel Frailich.
Woohoo! Nice hello.
Yay. And in a moment, when we start, wow, we're going to be learning so much from Ariel. I'm really looking forward to it. I want to thank all of you out there for joining us, and we'll see you all in a moment. You may remember me from my television shows in the 1980s and 90s, and now I host two regularly live streamed virtual magic shows. One is a showcase for some of the greatest magicians in the world, and the other is a talk show featuring some of the most inspiring conjurers of our times. Welcome now to Magical People. And welcome everybody to this edition of Magical People Live. I'm your host, Dr. Michael Likey, and my co-host is,
Pearl or Lady C.
yes, Lady Chameleon. And our very, very special guest this time is Ariel Frailich. How are you this day, Ariel?
I'm doing well, thank you. And yourselves?
Awesome. Thank you for asking. I was excited to get you back on this show. It's been about 3, 4 years or so. I think it was season 1 when you came on. And there's never enough time. It seems like we've chatted about so many things, and yet there's always much more to chat about. Very briefly, and if I were to cheat, I would look at my notes that I downloaded from the website. I'm tempted not to. But you have an extensive background in the world of magic, both in North America and Belgium, Europe. And you've written some of the, and I'm not just saying that because you're the guest this week, not just saying this to be kind, but you have written some of the most detailed books about magic in general, about specific effects, utility, things, which we'll talk about in a little while as well. And I'm just so pleased when I ordered, it's gonna go weird on me because it's chroma key. I ordered a few years ago Spin the Bottle, an effect, essentially a vanishing card to impossible location sort of effect. I didn't know what to expect. I thought, well, it'll be pretty good. Well, of course, it exceeded my expectations. I'm not just saying that to be nice, Ariel, because let's chat a little bit when we were growing up about the difficulty of learning magic from books. Not all books were as great as yours. Many were, I won't deny that. But some effects that we've bought, at least I did as a child and older, was, as you said in another interview, a one sheet sort of, that's it, that's the explanation. No other ideas, just straight through mechanical things. Thank goodness you don't write like that. How do you feel about that and growing up with a certain generation and certain kinds of books? How do you feel about books being written back then, books written now, and the advent of video?
I may not be the best person to answer that because I grew up reading books that were written in the 30s and 40s and translated into French. I grew up in Belgium. And in fact, I have somewhere my two favorite books, which I don't have at hand, which were written 1934, 1935, respectively, I believe. So yeah, I learned sleight of hand and just about everything I know, the whole foundation of magic from those two books. And a few more. Later on, when I had access to North American and a little bit of British material, but mostly North American, I discovered the Paula Paul book, which is fantastic to this day. In my opinion, still one of the great books of card magic, and a few others, and Buckley, Stars of Magic. They're fantastic books. Now, are they easy to read? I'll be honest, and sorry if this is immodest, but I'm a serious reader. I never had any problems with books. There's only one book I remember, a magic book, where the sentences were incomplete and cut off and going across that I had trouble with. I actually threw it away. They were lecture notes by
Wow.
somebody I won't mention. Nobody's ever heard of him anyway, so it doesn't matter. but I've never had a problem following books. It had to be pretty bad for me to not be able to follow. Now you're going to ask me about books and video. I would like to take the opportunity to talk about my friend Al Martin. So I met Al many years ago, and Al is long gone now. Al was at the forefront of high tech. He was a brilliant engineer. He worked for the DND, Canadian Department of National Defense, with at the forefront of miniaturization electronics. Fantastic. This was in the 70s. Al would have been 35 to my 20 at the time. Al could not learn anything from a book. One day, he showed me proudly twisting the aces, which is a classic trick most magicians know. And he said, "Do you know how I learned this?" And I said, "Well, I assume from the book," because I didn't really understand it, or I didn't really know at that point that Al was not very good at reading magic books. So he told me a few months earlier, I spent an afternoon at his place, and he had a video camera, which nobody had in those days. And he taped me doing my close-up act. And he watched me do, yes, twisting the aces, which is not a trivial trick if you don't know. He watched it hundreds of times and, as we say today, reverse engineered it until he figured it out, which is brilliant.
Wow.
And he still was not able to get a trick from reading. So, that changed my view. I was a little bit arrogant, let me be honest. What do you mean you can't learn from a book? But after the experience with Al, I was very humbled. Some people, it just does not compute.
Absolutely. I learned that too, the further west I moved, because I had a certain attitude as well, very much like that, and learned that there are people who voraciously read. They learn from reading books and manuscripts and stuff. And there are those who are more tactile. They'd rather maybe handle something or watch a video. So thank goodness there's all of that still available. I don't know if you were around in you were probably living in Toronto at the time. Would have been early to mid 70s probably. And when I bought a magic trick from Henry Gordon, it was Henry Gordon's party shop. Perfect Magic wasn't around yet, Magie Parfait. And Morrissey was around, but I hadn't discovered him yet. I think he was in Montreal and Toronto. And Henry Gordon was brilliant because, and it was just a magic counter loaded with stuff near the back of his store, a huge store. And he showed me Animan's practical mental effects. No, Animan's card magic, something to that effect. And of course, I knew nothing about card sleights at that point. I was 14. And Rabina's saying she's a kinetic learner. Yes, absolutely. So thank goodness there's all of that. And so he also encouraged me that I think it was called Basic Card Technique. Wonderful illustrations, a soft cover book, not too thick, but crammed with stuff. And so I thought, yeah, we'll leave it aside a little bit and whatever. And so I'm trying to get through one effect in the Animan book. I didn't know what a dovetail shuffle was. I didn't know what an interlace riffle shuffle was. I didn't know about a pass, any of the different kinds of passes or forcing, etc. And he was brilliant. He sold me one book that I voraciously enjoyed because it's mentalism, and I loved Kreskin back then. I still do. And if I were to figure out any of the effects and how to do them, I had to learn the basic card technique. And I spent a whole summer day and night. I should have been working, but no, I was working at Magic. And I'm not sorry that I learned the rudiments, if you will, of magic, but it was all from books back then.
very much so. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
videos came
Yeah.
out, videos started appearing in 74, 75, 76, if I remember well. Yeah.
You have any questions, Cheryl?
What got you, as I hear, you write very detailed books. Probably for people like me because I cannot learn from reading. I have to see it to do it. Um, did you start writing it very detailed because of your friend, or had you wrote it in detail before then, written it?
I want my book, if I write a book, I want it to be, if I put out anything, I want it
Mhm.
to be accessible to as many people as possible. So in some instances, in one of my books, I've actually written, if you're advanced, please forgive me for being so basic. But I feel that, there are people who've never had anything to do with the topic I'm talking about. This is especially true of one book called Reading Writing, which we'll talk about later on if you like,
Yeah.
which has a lot of what we call mentalism, mind reading magic, or mind reading. And because of the nature of the book and because people know me and are interested in stuff I write, I know that a lot of people will not have a background in mind reading magic.
Hmm.
So I went to the very, very basics. You know, this is the front, this is the back. Oh, see, I
Yes.
got myself confused. But yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Go down to the lowest level. Speak to the back of the audience, the back of the theater type of thing.
Yeah. That's for me. That's for people like me. Because I need that. It's got to be so simple and, I want to say foolproof, but even then I can mess it up, just like going somewhere. Oh, so how long have you been writing?
I wrote my first book in 1995, Card Stories, which did very, very well. It's out of print now. I'm hoping to rewrite it one of these days. I'm trying to rewrite. I've been trying to rewrite it for several years already with no success. I just can't get myself in the right frame of mind. Then I I started out writing and publishing my own book, and I became instantaneously a small magic publisher.
Oh,
And
wow.
I put out several other books that were written by other authors. I didn't go back to writing myself until 2013, or maybe was, well, no, that's a copyright date. So 2012, I guess, when I started writing 2011, because it took me 2 years to write that book. And I started writing Reading Writing, which came out in 2013. And then I was tied up with a few other things. And I didn't write my next book, the most recent one, until 2018, called Sub Rosa.
Oh, wow.
I love that. I love that. I think you sent me it as an ebook, and it's just brilliant. I want to pose a question, if I may. Um, this might not be new. Back in 93 or so, it sort of was, but I may be misinformed. Um, I was a big fan of Cameron Academy and Gary Willett and Guy, and I think it was Close Up Illusions had a companion video. I owned both, of course, because I couldn't just own one or the other. I wanted to compare. And very detailed as well, lots of photographs. I think they were probably stills from the video, or maybe a combination of both. How do you feel about that, about companion videos that could go with a book, with a written word?
Mixed feelings, but I would do it. Mixed feelings because, as we discussed earlier in pre-show, it's very easy for people to take on the mannerisms of those that they,
Yes.
which has always been a problem with any kind of moving, moving pictures. Let's call it generically that. On the other hand, sleight of hand is really, really challenging to describe. Now, as your thumb is already twisted backwards. Move your middle finger so that it's parallel to the third finger, but bend the first phalanx. What?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
very much, if a picture is worth 1,000 words, I guess a video is worth 10,000 at least.
I agree. I absolutely agree. I'm thinking of going that route with my latest book, the one that's out already, where Cheryl and I are doing two-person telepathy, because we've certainly done it on open mic and the Tuesday Magic Theater. So we have the footage already, and then I could lend the verbal explanations, or we can, for those who aren't good with the written word, because as you say, things can get detailed, be so detailed that it's hard to follow. I also agree, and I'm coming from a certain perspective as well, that especially if a magician is younger, maybe not, maybe, of any age, where they may emulate their hero, where they might see, well, Copperfield or Kreskin or who knows who, and start to talk like them and move like them. I mean, that's a good point of departure, but one has to develop their own character. They have to be an extension of their stage character should be an extension of their inner self or one of their inner personalities. How do you feel about that, Ariel?
Well, yeah. What can I say? I absolutely agree. Um, in the last, I don't know, 20 years, 25 years, there's been this huge emphasis amongst younger magicians to be creative, be original. And everybody, or I shouldn't say everybody, but it's often it's often believed to mean come up with original tricks. No, you don't need original tricks. If you can come up with original magic, that's great. But if it's not in you, don't bang your head against the wall doing it. That's not what being original is about. Being original is making something your own, just like it is, just as it is with music. We've heard countless songs that were redone by a bunch of people, and a lot of them are covers that sound like, like the original. And then there's once in a while somebody who comes out with their own version that blows everything out of the water. Like what was it? Disturbed and Sound of Silence.
Yes.
Talk about making it his own. Wild.
Exactly. And we do. We as performers, we need to make it our own. We need to have our own onstage presence, perhaps. Um, the way I work, and this is easier for me, I'll look at effects that are for sale, and I get dozens of emails or more a day soliciting, from magic companies. And if it's not me, if I look at something and I can't see myself on stage, that it's not me, I won't bother. But on the other hand, some stuff really, really is me, and I'll jump on it. So yeah, that's so crucial. But I don't know if that's something that comes with experience or not. Are a lot of kids and young people and preteens and teens and early adulthood, um, are they coming up with their own image? I don't know. Are they, Ariel? I ask you.
You have a very good point, and you wouldn't expect them to. And as we know, emulating a role model is a very good way to start. But the problem I see is that a lot of these young people are nurtured on the idea of come up with your own tricks. So later on, when they do have the experience, well, who knows? Who knows which direction they go? But there's very little talk about personalizing. And yet personalizing is really what it's all about. We are performers. We're in the entertainment business. What we do is art. Let me just make a very, very tiny parenthesis. We call ourselves performers in English. In French, nous sommes des artistes. no
Ah,
matter what they do, even if it's spinning plates in a circus. Artiste.
yes.
That's something we've forgotten. And what is an artist? Somebody who expresses his, her own reality.
And that's when it's true. That's when it's moving. That's when it shifts from being anything being performed, be it a magic effect or music or sculpture or anything. That's when it veers into being something moving, when it's an extension of the person. There's a truth with a capital T in there. So important. Yeah, I've seen a mixture of young and not so young performers. Some of them, they're obviously being themselves on stage. There's some sort of extension. I just don't, and I'm going to sound like an old fogey, but what the heck? I don't like when they go up with torn jeans and a sweatshirt. It bothers me. It makes me feel like they're not respecting the art. But it could be a character as well. But a lot of them are copying David Blaine or later on Copperfield when he switched to jeans and a sweatshirt because he had to. But we won't go into the details about the flying illusion. So, there has to be a certain amount of respect for oneself and then for the art. But I think you'll automatically telegraph that respect. If you respect yourself, it becomes part of the art as well. Then it's conveyed in a very, very good way. Um, I'm gonna play devil's advocate. We chatted about this off camera. Um, and Cheryl, please feel free to pipe in. I know how you feel. I feel the same way. I'm pretty sure Ariel feels the same. I never felt, I'll preface this question, this statement, whatever. I never felt, how do I put this? That there is a problem between magic and mentalism. Not a problem, but when I was starting off and I did 250 shows a year for a dozen years, yes, I kept it to magic, family magic for kids and adults. And I threw in a couple of mentalism effects, but I wasn't selling myself as a thought reader, as a mind reader. I was a magician doing a couple of mind reading effects of that sort. Likewise, I've seen both. When I say amateur, it's not a judgment statement, hobbyist and professional mentalists who sell themselves as thought readers or bizarre magicians or mystery entertainers throw in a little bit of magic, one magic effect, be it linking finger rings, as in Kreskin's case. I've seen him do some magic tricks throughout a 4 or 5 year run of his show. Um, where do you stand on this, Ariel?
I'm not a big fan of the total separation of the two. The idea is that if a magician does a mind reading piece, it's a magician doing a mind reading piece. If a mind reader does magic, well, everything is fake. Doesn't
Yes,
work. That's not true. That is
exactly.
absolutely not true. I mean, the first part, yeah, a magician who does mind reading, it's a magician doing mind reading. But the other is not true at all. And I have a wonderful story to tell you. I have a friend. His name is Mark Lewis. He is a magician and a psychic. He goes to psychic fairs where he plies his trade. I see you were born at a very young age. No, for real. He reads palms, he does some other things. And when Mark goes to these psychic fairs, at the very beginning, as soon as doors open, within an hour or two, he gets himself a room. I mean, he rents the room, but right at the beginning, at the opening of the fair, he goes into a room and puts on a magic show. You know, the kinds with bunnies and pieces of silk and the like. A literal magic show. Does it detract? Not one bit. He's been doing psychic shows for years. He knows how many people he gets. He The reason he does it is to anchor who he is into people's minds. Oh, that's a guy we saw. Yeah, let's go see him. And it does not diminish the number of readings he does. It may even increase, I don't know, but it certainly does not diminish. Why? Well, they're two different skills.
Mhm.
What I can do. And now, two completely different, unrelated skills. And after hearing Mark telling me this, and I've known Mark for, oh my gosh, coming up on 50 years. I don't look it. I'm also 22,
Yeah.
celebrating 40 years late, whatever. Uh, anyway, after I heard Mark tell me that story and picking my jaw off the ground, that was the end of the issue for me. I mean, it was never my issue because I'm not a mind reading, but that settled it. And for the same reason, by the way, a lot of mind readers don't do card tricks or don't do, sorry, I shouldn't call them card tricks. It's not what I mean, but mind reading using playing cards, which to me is completely wrong because where else do you find a small number of random things that can be used for choices, secret choices, without putting people on the spot? Think of word between of these 500. Yeah, okay, right. This is so much easier,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
and it doesn't
I
have.
personally prefer playing cards to Zener cards or ESP cards. I don't find them as interesting visually, but I will use both on occasion. But I prefer it stirs on the imagination playing cards. There's pictures and colors and whatnot.
It can, yeah, depending on how you handle it, which obviously you do. Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Then
yeah,
you
yeah,
get
yeah.
tarot. Then you get a tarot cards, which are even more so, more intriguing. But that's another.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I came here back in 94. I moved here where did I move here? From Winnipeg. I grew up in Montreal, lived in Toronto a couple of years back in 80, 81, lived in Winnipeg for 13 glorious years, and then got fed up with 40 below zero, minus 40 wind chill, ended up out here. And they didn't like they generally, I'm generalizing, not all magicians out here have issues, but some do, with psychic stuff, psychic phenomena. Um, but had I not had those skills and gifts, I would have starved. I came out here and it's like, no, I won't be getting $450 for a half-hour magic show out here, just to give you an example, or $200 an hour for caricatures. Uh-uh, completely different scene out here. So I quickly found myself in trouble because I didn't have an agent out here at the time. I still have an agent in Winnipeg, however. And I turned to what was a hobby, which was reading tarot. It's also a skill. I never did cold reading. Magicians will know what I'm talking about. Non-magicians, look it up. In any case, I did tarot card readings for real, and then branched off into clinical hypnotherapy and theocentric psychology and stuff to offer my clients more than just tarot. It also allowed me to charge a lot more, but that wasn't the impetus. It was to give the clients more. So I found a lot of issues here with some magicians. Well, you're a fake, you're a fraud, you don't do the real, so you're doing cold readings, huh? And it's like, I won't get into an argument. They don't believe, I don't care really, as long as I'm providing a service for people, a legitimate service, what I perceive as a legitimate service. So I don't know where a lot of magicians anymore stand in larger centers than here. I'm assuming that anything goes, it's all good. But do you find that there's a segment of the magical population that does not like psychic readings or is sure that it's fake or what?
Much less so than years ago, but there's a small kernel. I know some people who shall go nameless who turned up their nose at mind reading because it's fake, and they've come around.
Ah,
However, there's still a small nucleus of magicians who look down on anything that smacks of the paranormal, being a fraud, yeah, blah blah blah. Um, I've written my book, Reading Writing, is about handwriting analysis,
yes.
and which is at the edge of what we're talking about. And my recommendation is to say, look, this is what the field says. Up to you to believe or not believe. You can do the same thing with almost all the paranormal, psychic, etc. kinds of reading. Look, I read the books on the on tarot, and this is the significant according to the book. Is it true? Is it false? I have no idea.
Very good. Very
So
good. Um,
it's
any
honest.
que
It's honest.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think everyone should have an education about so many different things. And I wish everybody was open to learning about anything and everything. Not everybody is, but anywho, that's their thing. Do you have more questions, Cheryl, before we head into this mini video thing of his books?
I just want to know the book that you threw away that was not all finished. You said you couldn't understand it and you're very well read. Any chance that you would ever find it again and try to figure it out?
Let me be very arrogant and say no,
That's not arrogant.
because many years later I found out that this magician's work was as good as his writing.
Oh, could you
And
write it for him then?
I don't know if
Make
he's
it
still
your own.
alive. I mean, he's barely known. I mean, there's like a handful of people who've ever heard of him. But
Oh,
look, put it this way, and let me be honest here.
yeah.
As we say in French, no real or false modesty.
Hmm.
Look at this. Do I have
Yes.
enough tricks for a few lifetimes? You know, do I need more magic? I read books on theory. I read
Ooh,
books on, yeah, I love theory. I also write on theory, but that's another story. But for magic, for magic tricks, for magic pieces, it has to be pretty exceptional, or in some way or other, for me to go out and buy a magic book.
yeah. Oh, I understand.
You know, most of it follows, it's just, you know, a little bit, a tiny bit beyond what's here, not enough to make a real difference.
Yeah.
A lot of magic books are about, well, I do it this way,
Mm.
not look at this. This is something completely new, but I do it this way. Sometimes there's a little bit more. And yeah, no, there are some very good people putting out some very good books, but I don't find that they're attractive enough for me to go to read them. Well, if they were what's the word, thrust into my hands, yeah, I'd look at it, but that's about it.
Excellent. Okay, Dr. Likey, your turn.
Thank you. I prepared a very, very brief video. I wanted to show off a couple of the covers. I couldn't find all of the books of yours, Ariel, and I'd like to, if we can take a moment to speak briefly about a couple of the books and perhaps some I've forgotten. So let us have a look and talk a bit about, well, we'll start with this one since it's the first one. I see Jay Sankey wrote the foreword. I love him. What's this book about?
You want the backstory or just answer the question?
Oh, anything that feels right.
Backstory.
Have, we have
Yes, yes.
we have a few minutes, and I think the story is worth bringing up. So I started out learning sleight of hand well, sleight of hand, magic by sleight of hand primarily. I'm well read. I learned about all kinds of magic, but sleight of hand is what drew me. I became very, very good at it. But I also knew that I wasn't particularly interesting. So my semi-mentor in magic, magic dealer in Brussels, in Belgium, he said, "Well, being able to do a trick is one thing, but you still have to know how to present it." Very true. Except that his way of adding presentation to a trick was instead of saying, "I put the coin in my hand," you say, "If I put the coin in my hand." Sorry, cards falling to the floor. If I if I put the coin in my hand, and that was his idea of how to present a trick. So I didn't learn anything from him. And what can I say? I nobody taught, I am bookish, and that is also my fault, my problem, if you will. If it's not in print, it doesn't really compute. It doesn't really enter my awareness. So yeah, I saw a number of good magicians, but I have to say also that a lot of magicians were not much more um, did not have presentations that were more compelling than, "Here, let me show you a trick. Take a card, put it back." It was very, very basic. And then one day, thanks to well, long story short, I left magic for about a dozen years. I came back to it, so 1995, and I had changed. It had been a dozen years. Life goes on. I was not the same person. So I like to say that I hung up Marlowe and took down Berger. So Marlowe was a famous author of intricate sleight of hand. Eugene Berger was the guru of story of, well, right brain, left brain type of thing. He was the antithesis of that. He was about emotion, about art, about all of those things. So I read Berger and I was fascinated. I researched it. I found a few more authors in that direction. The most important one being a German magician called Punx, Punx, who wrote a fantastic book called Magical Adventures and Fairy Tales. And it was all story presentations, magic tricks, magic pieces done, told with stories. And it was marvelous. And it's not long, boring stories. So, not as which was popular in the Victorian era. You had very, very long, drawn out tricks where you told the story that never ended, and the payoff was not very interesting. This was bang, 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 stuff happening all the time, and just happened to have a story with it. The light went on for me. Suddenly, I had to perform. I wanted to perform. I mean, I did perform before that. I performed a long time ago when I was in college, professionally, only for a short while. But now there was a real desire. Um, I understood what it meant to entertain, as opposed to just doing tricks. Very different. So I went through my repertoire. I had maybe 15 or so card tricks for which I was well known, which I'd been doing for years. And I started thinking, okay, how do I put stories? How do I put them to stories? And so I sat down and card stories as a result. It's a small book. There's 17 tricks, I think. Two from friends, one from Jay, and one from a friend called Tom Rance. Oh no, there were three. And one from Tom Baxter, Canadian magician who unfortunately passed away a few years ago. And all the rest were my own stories and presentation. And card stories, it struck a chord with magicians. I sold about 1,250 copies, which in the world of magic is very good.
Yes. Yes. Almost unheard of. Almost.
No, 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 no. I wouldn't say that. But in those days, uh, one of the one of the two big magic publishers sold about 1,000 copies of one of a title, and the other one managed bigger. He managed to sell about 2,000 copies. The record was 3,000 copies. This is
Wow.
Paul Harris's Art of Astonishment. Nevertheless,
Ah,
I had been out of magic for over a decade. Nobody knew me except a few very old magicians from Toronto, and yet it sold 1,250 copies, which I'm very proud of. I was asked to I was asked to work at the castle. I was asked to do lectures. I didn't. Um, I just had a baby at the time, and traveling was out of the question for a while. And then life went on, but it was very successful. It got feedback. That's the thing. It got feedback. So a few years later, yes, spin the bottle. Um, spin the bottle came about. I don't remember exactly how I came up with the trick. It may actually have been the other way around. I may have started with a story. Nah, that doesn't sound right. Anyway, the trick is a card is selected, it disappears from the deck, and it's found inside a bottle. And what makes it, well, I like to say there were two things that stood out with that trick. And this is a trick that I put out as a commercial standalone magic trick. There's two things. I claim that they're the best instructions in the magic world, bar none. And I've been told by a genuine authority that it's at the same level as one other, which has always been considered the very best. So I stand by what I said. And the reason um, I'm so proud of it is because it's so extensive. It's a simple little quote unquote trick, but Simon Lovell once said, you gave it importance. Everything
yes.
I do, I give importance. Otherwise, I'm not being, what's the word? I'm doing my customers a disservice. I have to dot the I's. I have to be precise. I have to give as much information as I possibly can. So when I provide information, it goes way beyond just the trick. It's everything that goes around it.
Absolutely. Here's the book that fascinated me. I came across it the other day when I was doing more research, and I thought, oh, this is about handwriting analysis. What was the impetus for this, Ariel?
Ah, that's another story. So in my misspent youth, I had a million interests. It wasn't just magic, although that was the major one. I was seriously interested in psychology, trying to understand why people do the things they do and why they didn't like me. No, never mind. And
Oh,
and for whatever reason, I gravitated towards handwriting analysis. I learned a lot about a number of field, but handwriting analysis really grabbed me more than anything else. Perhaps also the fact that I grew up in a French-speaking country where, because France is one of the capitals of handwriting analysis, it's used, widely used in industry for hiring, etc. It's a big thing in France. So it came naturally. And I have, a stack of books, not like this, but a stack of books serious books on handwriting analysis. In France, you have to have, or at least in the old days, you had to have a psychology diploma in order to enter a handwriting analysis school. Take it very seriously. Long story short, so yeah, I was very interested in the handwriting analysis. And like everything else, life happened, and it kind of went by the wayside. And then one day I get a call from a good friend of mine, the psychic, the same psychic I mentioned earlier, the one who does magic tricks at the beginning of psychic fairs. He says, Ariel, I've been hired or I've been asked to do handwriting analysis for a company in downtown Toronto. They're having a big party. Uh, the only thing is, they're from Montreal, coming to Toronto. They speak French. You want to do it? No, absolutely not. So a
I
few days
love it.
later, sorry.
I love it.
So a few days later, he convinced me, twisted my arm. And I don't know if you know anything about handwriting analysis, but, well, you do, of
I
course.
do. I do.
For everybody else, if you don't know handwriting analysis, you get somebody to write stuff on a piece of paper freely, and then you look at various traits in the handwriting, which are standardized, and then you give an interpretation, and the interpretation is fairly fixed. This. Let me be clear. One could do very, very detailed analyses that take several hours to do, but doing them as readings, meaning when people come up to you like at a fair or something like that, you do very short ones, and those short readings are based on specific traits. Uh, you cross the T like this, it means one thing. You cross it upwards, it means something else. Cross it down. So it's very specific little signs. So in order to make my life easier when I took that job, I made a little, what we call a tick sheet. So a tick sheet is where you have these traits and you circle the appropriate one. So what is the form of your intelligence? Are you someone who's logical or intuitive? So that's the type of thing you have. You underline either intuitive or logical, whatever. So I made a little tick sheet, not knowing that tick sheets had been used by magicians, or mentalists, mind readers, psychics for decades, because this was not my field. So I reinvented the tick sheet. Okay, what did I know? And boy, did it make my life easier because I'm very bad at, I don't write very quickly. So boy, did
Ah,
it make my life easier when I did that show. And well, I enjoyed doing that one more than I thought I would because I was nervous. I hadn't touched handwriting analysis for decades at that point. But I fell right back into it and I started doing some work. Well, hang on. We're not done yet. So I started off with a tick sheet, and sometime later, yeah, this I have to explain. You asked me how did this book come about? I'll tell you as quickly as I can. So after a few years, or maybe a couple of years after I stopped doing that, 'cause I was active. I did a number of shows, reading shows. It dawned on me, you know what? This tick sheet, remember, I didn't know that they were a standard thing, could be maybe useful to others. Then I looked and thought, no, this is worth, 50 cents. I'm not going to bother. I mean, but it's not a big deal. Anybody who's done it can make one himself. Okay. Time
I
went
love
on.
it. Huh.
Every so often, I opened my drawer, there was my tick sheet, and I thought, you know what? Maybe I could make a little booklet. Here's what these things mean. Yeah, that's a good idea. So if the T-bar goes like this, it means this. And that's how you use a tick sheet. You tick that off. And if it goes down, you blah, blah, blah. Nah, that's not. It's no better than any book you can pick up in the bookstore on handwriting analysis. In fact, they have um, much more information than I could do in my little booklet. So no, shelf that idea. Over time, it grew, it grew, it grew. I'm going to write, well, okay, here was the clincher. A very well-known uh, mind reader, mentalist, Lee-Earl, wrote in one of his later writings, handwriting analysis is going to be the next hot thing because it bridges the impossible with or the improbable with the known, basically. Lovely quote. So I looked around, and there were maybe three mentalists who did handwriting analysis as mentalists, not as people who do readings. That's something else. But people who start off as mind readers, magician, uh,
Yes.
mental guys, mental people. Yeah, I know. They don't do that. What if I write a book that's one, a complete course on everything you need to know for just doing simple readings and come up with mind reading experiments based around handwriting analysis, which nobody had done before. There were exactly two such things in print before that. L. Vosberg Lyon's Graphology, which is in the old Jinx for magicians who know. And there was somebody else. Oh yeah, Eddie Fields, of course. He did something with handwriting analysis in the context of a Q&A. But nobody um, had applied handwriting analysis to mentalism. Very quick parenthesis, in the last 20 years, maybe 15 years, a number of people who used to do mentalism mind reading turned away from the idea of mentalists as psychic, who perceives through ESP, towards the expert in human behavior who knows about NLP and body language, handwriting analysis, voice inflections, micro expressions, all of those things. So there was this big shift from psychic to psychologist. And I thought this fits perfectly in there. So I wrote this book. And on top of everything else, there's even a chapter on magic tricks. Yes, tricks with cards using handwriting analysis, which is completely new. Nobody came even close to doing that, with a bit of help from my friend Suzanne, famous close-up magician. Anyway, long story short, so eventually I spent 2 years writing. I consider it my magnum opus because it's well, what can I say? I put in an enormous amount of work, and I claim you can learn this in a week. And the experts who reviewed the book said, it took me no more than 10 days.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow,
Wow.
wow, wow.
Yes. So you were talking about clear, lucid writing. That's been mentioned in a number of reviews as well. And that's a story of reading, writing. Um,
I
yeah, I'm
love it.
proud
I
of it.
love it. Here's another one I love is Sub Rosa, which is basically not new, but probably new to many magicians. It's a technique. I think you said it's at least 100 years old. Let's chat about that. How did that come to be?
In Brussels, I attended a show with a few of my friends performing, including the owner of the magic shop. And he did what is known as a bullet catch. So he
Yes.
was on stage. He was at one end of the stage. At the other end was somebody who picked a cartridge from a box of 22 cartridges, stuck them in a small rifle, carbine, I forget. And in between were two people holding this huge pane of glass suspended on a pole. One person at each side holding the pole in front of him so that you could actually see the bullet penetrate. Um, so the person aimed, shot, hole in the glass, and my mentor caught the bullet, spit it out. Yeah, it was a success. I visited the magic shop the next day, and of course, we got to talking about that, especially since a shard of glass hit him in the forehead and he was bleeding. And to him, that was wonderful because if that didn't prove it's real, nothing would. So he loved the fact that he had the scar and a plaster over it. We got to talking about it, and he said, "Do you know how I did this?" I had no idea. Most magic books don't really explain how to do bullet catches. So, long story short, he showed me how, and my jaw dropped. It was unbelievably simple. It used a sleight of hand technique that's not even sleight of hand.
Yes.
it's brilliant. For those who know, it happened when the spectator picked a cartridge out of the tin. And it was a genuine cartridge that the spectator picked. I'm not going to say anything more.
Yes. Yes.
But it was mind-blowing in its simplicity. My God, look at this. Years later, I become a writer. I moved back to Canada. I'm born in Toronto, by the way. Grew up over there, came back when I was 19. Years later, I'm thinking after this came out in 2018. So it was in the 2010s, I started thinking about this. You know, this technique is fantastic. Everybody knows this technique, but I know maybe half a dozen people who've used it, and only once in a while. It's only mentioned in print in two places, I think, in Bascom Jones' Magic and maybe one other place in the context of, um, of an experiment, of a magic piece. And it doesn't even have a name. It just said you do this and you do that. I thought, wait a moment, this thing is so powerful, you should be able to do all kinds of stuff with it. And so I sat down and started thinking, okay, what can you actually do with it? And I had a few false starts. I was going a different direction. And this I can't really talk much about because it's innermost
Yes.
stuff. It's hermetic stuff. Oops. But I looked at it in the wrong way. How can I use a such and such? No, that's not what it's about. It's in which circumstances can I use this? Maybe you'll understand what I'm getting, and if not, it's not that important.
Yes, absolutely.
So you see what
Absolutely.
I'm getting
And it's
at.
invisible. That's all I'll say. It's invisible, practically invisible.
It's absolutely invisible because it's all psychological. So once I
Yes.
oriented myself properly, the number of things I came up with was staggering. And it wasn't because it was, you know, I don't take credit for it. It wasn't my genius. It's just that the thing is so versatile, it writes itself. There's so
Yes.
many things. So this book, Sub Rosa, is an in-depth explanation, examination of the technique, how to use it in many circumstances, and especially about 70 effects, 70 magic pieces you can do with it. And after the book came out, I came up with more ideas. And and readers have come up with their own ideas for what to do with it. It's such a versatile thing, it's incredible. And
Absolutely. I love it. I love it. I love the simplicity of it when you sent me the PDF of it a few years ago already. I was even more impressed because it's almost limitless what you can do with that.
yeah,
Brilliant. So, Ariel, tell me if people want to get in touch with you or they want to perhaps buy a book or a manuscript, where do they go?
isawthat.com.
Very good. I saw that
This
dot
is my
com.
magic company. I saw that. Now put into one word and put a period instead of an exclamation mark. .com, and you've got my website, isawthat.com.
Wonderful.
My logo.
I love that. I do. I do. That's from a book, isn't it? I remember that. I remember that
How,
from
how did you know that?
uh,
But the things, the original is from a book, but I added the secret stuff to it. That was not
right.
an original. It's from, what's it called? One of the old reprints. I can't think. It's not this one, but it's one of these. I think it was,
Yes. Yes.
you know, uh, Tommy Downs' book, T. Nelson Downs, The Art, what was it called? The Art of Magic?
Yes.
Dover edition, there's a hand like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's where I've seen
I
it.
took it, I made it into a cartoon, and I added the secret stuff.
I love it. I love it. I want to thank you so much, Ariel, for gracing the show. You're a
Thank
wealth
you.
of information. Obviously, we didn't cover a fraction, but we covered hopefully enough to whet people's appetites for any of your books. I know that I'm going to go back to the website and order at least two other things, which I won't mention because I want people to choose their own and based on their own tastes, etc. So thank you once again so much, Ariel Frailich, for visiting us this
Thank
day,
you.
and hopefully you'll join us again down the road.
Thank you for having me, and yes, with great pleasure.
Same. Thank you.
Thank you.
And there we go. Wow. Isn't that exciting, Cheryl? What a wealth of information. And we barely, it was the tip of the iceberg, really.
I'm just so appreciative that somebody can write a book for people like myself who can't learn from books, but can actually learn from his books because of it's very descriptive. I
Yes.
love that. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, wonderful. And thank you so much, Cheryl, for being my co-host once again this time. I think we'll see you on Wednesday at the Open Mic Magic Theater.
Wednesday.
Look it up on Facebook if those of you, very few of you, are unfamiliar with it or not familiar with it, I'm sure. And we'll look forward to doing something together this coming Wednesday again.
Yes, I look forward to it.
Same. Thanks once again, Cheryl. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye bye. And I want to thank, of course, all of you out there for visiting us this day. We're here every Saturday at 1 p.m. West Coast time or LA time, if you will, 4 p.m. New York time or Eastern time. You notice I skipped the middle of the country. I don't mean to. There's look it up to find your time zone. And of course, 9 p.m. UK time. And we are going to have in a couple of weeks my the first Friday of the month, my Friday night Wizard Emporium. It's a huge one, this one. We have quite a few people we've never had on the show, plus a lot of our regulars as well. And again, we do it for you guys. We do it for our audience. We do it to share. That's the only reason why we do it. And we hope you enjoy it. We hope you keep coming back. We'll see probably all of you, I hope, at the Open Mic Magic Theater again on Facebook this Wednesday. Actually, same time, 1 p.m. LA time, 4 p.m. New York time, and 9 p.m. UK time. Want to thank all of you once again, and we'll look forward to seeing you when we get together again really soon. We'll see you soon.